How's it going, everybody? Derek from Make Media Studios, and today I'm here with Michael Soledad. He is a creator that I follow on Instagram and YouTube. He's got some amazing content. Really happy he's here with me today. How's it going, Michael?
Pretty good, Derek. Thank you for having me. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't really expecting such a production.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for working with me here. I know our internets and everything. We're making everything. We're troubleshooting today. So
Yes.
thanks for being on board with that. I love your studio setup. It's really nice.
Thank you. It's very small. It looks more impressive in pictures, to be honest with you, than what it really is in real life. But you work with what you got, right? So, and it's like I said earlier, this is like a work in progress for the last 2 years. So for anyone who aspires to have like a nice studio or office, keep at it. It's just time. One piece at a time.
Takes time. All right. So for some of my viewers out there and people, you should definitely follow him. His links are going to be down below. But Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a graphic designer. Actually, by trade, I was a graphic designer and a photographer for the last maybe 15 years. Photography was more of a hobby, which I just started, using as part of my job in the last, I'd say like 3 years. Mm-hmm. And since, the pandemic, basically, all of my business, my clients from the graphic design side of the business kind of went quiet, which is understandable. Mm-hmm. So I've switched to full content creation since then. And so far, I'm still starting from the bottom, but so far, so good. It's promising. So I'm just keeping at it pretty much.
Good job. And so you've been really kind of working on this just since like March, April?
I would actually before that, like around January, but I never gave myself the chance to really focus on it until around April. Yes.
Oh, wow. Graphic design wise, what were you doing?
Honestly, the boring stuff.
Okay.
It's not the most exciting because most of my clients were in commercial real estate.
Okay.
So I had to design a lot of brochures and marketing materials that were very much serious. You know what I mean? So lots of stats, lots of building pictures, and lots of like land.
Yeah.
So not the most exciting, but it was it was rewarding in a sense, not creatively, but it was working for me. It was providing enough for myself and my family. Mm-hmm. So that was great. But then, I slowly dabbled into like content creation a few years back, but never really took it seriously until this year.
Okay.
And I had to basically switch, which is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
If there's a silver lining out of all of this, it's that I found another way to hopefully make a living.
Right. And you get to do something that you're enjoying.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I do corporate videography. That's kind of where my background is. I still have a customer. I let you know that I just moved down here to LA from the Bay Area. Yes. But I have a customer up in the Bay Area still. It's an energy company, and I do most of them. Their content creator. So I'm in contract with them. I was in contract with them for a couple of years. So what's nice is I made a whole bunch of B-roll, and I have a lot of clips already and things that we kind of built up. And so I'm still their content creator from a distance now. Because of COVID, everything's closed. So I'm able to still edit things from here and keep them. So
how do you feel about that though? Like being away,
it's hard.
Being able to work. It's hard.
Yeah. You mean be away, like as in moving 300 miles?
I guess the context of that question is that how do you feel like as a content creator for working with a client that you've worked with in the past, but not having to show up at the office?
Yeah, it's different. Now I know that it's going to evolve into the point that eventually I'm probably going to have to step away, because they're going to need someone a little bit more local eventually. I'm still willing to make the travel and stuff like that, but I like that I have the client because it's helping me. It's kind of a jumping off point for me down here, right? I have something to hold on to right now to keep me afloat with my family and things like that. But yeah, it's I've seen them a couple times. We've done a couple shoots in their office since COVID started, and we're social distance. We're masks, and I set up the mics and everything, and I step away. And then one person comes in and talks on a green screen, and then that's about it. But yeah, it's a lot different now. It's I
It
miss
is a
I miss
lot
shaking
different.
hands. You know what I mean?
That's yeah. I'm a very social person.
Me too.
So that's the thing that I miss the most, just like interacting with my coworkers.
Yeah.
And that's partly the reason why I started the podcast, is because I could talk to other people.
Yeah.
As selfish as that may sound.
No. That's not selfish at all. I agree. I'm a very social person, and it's weird that I'm in this. I'm as a freelance videographer, though. I feel like 80% of my time is in my office editing, or I'm not really with people, and you're always kind of meeting a new person when you're going out and filming. So that's fun. But I actually just made a little post about this week that is kind of mental health and it being kind of alone in the creative world a little bit sometimes.
Yeah,
It's
very lonely, and people think that it's just something that we like to say, but it really is. Like you said, being a videographer, most of your time is being spent editing.
Yeah.
And those take hours.
Yeah.
And, when you sit down and start working, you don't even realize the time. It's just like 5-6 hours went by and you're basically in the intro, that it's so much work. And I think for me, maybe for you as well, being a social person, it saps a lot of your energy, you know what I mean? And you kind of want to recharge. So you're looking for that interaction, that human interaction that we kind of miss, but hopefully things get better, hopefully.
I think it will. I think that's what's the great thing about having this podcast and having your own personal. I like having my YouTube channel because that gives me an output to make stuff creative that I like and connect with people and grow an audience.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, that's true.
You were just talking about your podcast a minute ago. What's your podcast on?
Oh, well, my podcast is called the Coffee with Creators podcast, and as I mentioned earlier, it was mostly the idea came from me just being able to talk to other creatives. And even before the pandemic happened, I've always had that hunger for just interacting with other people. And it really started to leave an impression on me when I attended Adobe Max last year.
Okay.
So Adobe Max was the first big event that I was able to attend where I met a lot of these creatives and just talk to them like from different fields. And it was just so refreshing and quite frankly, energizing.
Nice.
And also inspiring. It made me feel like I'm not alone because as creatives, you tend to feel you're always like in your head. Right. You tend to feel like you're so different from everyone else that it makes you feel a little bit weird. I mean, the last time I brought up a topic about, I don't know, Photoshop or photography in like when I was amongst my friends or family, they looked at me weird. You know what I mean? Because most of the people that I'm around with are not in the same field.
Absolutely.
And so when I experienced that in Adobe Max, I had that hunger to just connect with other creatives. And so I said, maybe I should start a podcast. Luckily, a friend of mine, back then we weren't really friends. She followed my account. Her name is Chelsea Horn. Okay. And she followed my account on Instagram. And I think I made a post about like wanting to start a podcast. And I've actually tried starting a podcast, but it kept failing.
Okay.
Due to technical difficulties mostly. And the friend that I was supposed to do it with, she got really, really busy because she's a nurse. And so just our schedules always just kept, it was just wasn't working. And then Chelsea just randomly commented in my photo and said, maybe we should start a podcast. And I don't know what it was, but I like people who are like that, who are willing to just, let's do it. You know what I mean? Let's try something out. Because all my life, I've been around people who are always talking about wanting to do things. And very few people
do them
who actually want to do the thing, right? Yeah. So I said, all right, if you think that we could make a podcast, let's schedule a Zoom meeting or an Instagram, I don't know, like a video conference or something. And we did the next day just to see if we meshed. And yeah, she's great. Like we almost instantly became friends. And we've been doing the podcast since April.
Nice.
And we just finished recording episode 24. So basically the gist of the podcast is like the reason why it's called Coffee with Creators. It's not about coffee. It's like two creative friends who are sitting in a coffee shop and we're just talking about creative life. Yeah. And if anyone walks in and says, hey, we want to sit down and listen to you guys or chat with you, they're more than welcome. So we try to foster that type of environment in that podcast. And that's basically it. And we've had a few guests recently, And I think we shot ourselves in the foot because we just realized that every week that we're recording, we now have a guest. So it's now more of a pressure
Right.
to turn out content. So, but it's great though. Thank you for asking.
No, I mean, I guess I'm kind of down the same path, right? Mine is, make media podcast, but mine is the same thing. I want to meet with other creatives in as many different fields as I can and give them a voice, right? Someone that they can talk about what they've done, their history and advice. So I think that that's really cool. I'm jealous because I just saw that you had Landon from Full-Time Filmmaker.
He's so awesome.
Yeah, I bet.
As a videographer, I know you've seen his work.
I have seen his work.
Yeah, he's one of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. And I was like, I was telling him, I said, dude, like when I was messaging before the podcast, I asked him if he would be kind enough to attend or to be a part of the podcast. And he's like, yeah, I love you guys. Like I listened. I'm like, what? Like I can't believe it. Yeah. So I was like fanboying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you, how is it meeting a new person like this that we're doing right now? How is that for you? Like just meeting someone through the internet randomly and just striking up a conversation, and how is that?
I like the spontaneity of it. And maybe that's just my personality. When I was a kid, I was always shy. And basically, even through high school, I never really talked to people. But the thing that I noticed is that once I get to know someone, it's easy for me to make friends. Mm-hmm. But I'm always never the type of guy who just like would approach people and just say hi. So I feel like that's one of my weaknesses. So my strength is, I think, personality-wise, is I can be warm to people. Like anyone can approach me and talk to me and say hi. And that's definitely what I try to aspire to in my social media platforms, is to be someone that's approachable.
Yeah, thank you, by the way.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Like this one, for example, like in the beginning when I've never met you before. Right. And prior to this, we've only exchanged 2, 3 emails? Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Not even 3. Yeah. And so I had no idea, but I always look at it as like, it's like me going to like a bookstore and then seeing someone also looking at the same aisle and looking at the same titles or the same genres. And I'll be like, did you read this book? Is it good? Yeah. So that's how I see you. And I like this.
Yeah, me too.
I try not to think about it too much.
Right.
Because when you get in your head, then you start adding all these nonsensical things like, oh, this person might be this person might not like me and all that stuff. But I just try to read people as best as I can, and that's the best we can do anyway. 90% of the people you come across are going to be nice people. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I'm kind of that exact same way. When people first meet me, I'm usually quiet, right? I'm the quiet one, but once I'm your friend, I'm like the one that talks the most in the group. So it's like I'm very shy at first. And so some of the things that brought me out of my shell when I was younger is my best friend had a band and I played bass guitar, and his bass player quit the band. This is like in high school. And he's looked at me and he's like, we need a bass player. You own a bass. And I'm like, I don't even know how to play it. He's like, well, I'm going to teach you all our songs and you're going to start playing bass for us. So I learned how to playing their songs. They put me on stage, and that really brought me out of my shell.
Good.
And so ever since then, I'm definitely more talkative and open. My wife doesn't understand how I can just put myself in front of the camera and just start talking.
Right? Like it's a weird thing. Like even my wife, she's like, what do you do again? Like, I'm serious. Like if she is asked by someone, like, what does your husband do? She'd be like, I don't know. He just shows up on camera and he takes pictures of his desk and all that stuff. But they don't get it. But it's one of those things that there's an enjoyment there, right? Like it's a new form. It's not really a new form, but it's a more newly accepted form of creative expression, I feel. So I completely get that. Yeah. Well, how long ago did you start your podcast? I don't mean to be the host of this podcast, but I'm just curious.
No, I like going back and forth the questions. I started at the beginning of the pandemic. I think we're both about the same point. I think I'm at.
Oh, okay.
This is episode 19.
Oh yeah, you're right. We're just about the same.
Yeah, so this is about episode 19. I took a couple of week breaks here and there, but now I'm like this podcast. Spoil everyone out there in the world watching it right now. They probably won't see this for about three weeks because I kind of did a whole bunch this week, and I'm kind of building back up.
I see. You're more efficient than us.
I'm trying. I'm just trying to get ahead of it because that's what happened last time. I felt like I moved. I moved right in the middle of it, and that kind of just dropped me off my YouTube channel for like a month. And doing that whole move and everything. But yeah, now I'm here.
How do you feel about stacking your content in that way? Like, do you create content? Do you try to plan your content in a way where, okay, I have like a week to create as much as I can, and then slowly just like let them loose into the world?
I guess I like structure and schedule. So like this one, it's like I really want to do a podcast on Mondays, and I want to put out a tutorial or some kind of a video, me either talking to the camera about a subject matter, or doing a tutorial on Photoshop, or doing a Premiere Pro one on Thursdays. So I like to post twice a week, and I guess I like structure. That's why I joined the Navy.
That's true. That's why I will never be able to live that life, because I am too messy.
No, I am too, though. That's the thing. I feel like there's just certain things that I can be structured with, like this. Like I find joy in the structure, but then I'm also you ask my wife, I'm a gigantic mess. I'm just
you know what's interesting though? I tried doing that, and this shows how diverse people are, and I tried to structure my content. But like, for example, I have this collaboration with a company, and they said, okay, for the next couple months, we would like you to create content, based on this, and please submit all the content by this date, and that will run for like the next couple months. And I actually told them, I said, I have all the content. I gave them pictures. Okay, here are the pictures that I'm going to release for the next couple months. And then I came back. I actually went back to them and I emailed them. I said, "Here are new pictures."
Right.
And they're like, "Why are you sending me more? Why are you sending us more pictures?" And I'm like, "There's something about content for me that has to be almost like it has to occur. It has to be current."
I agree.
Like if you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Even if it's just a picture, to me personally, it's just like it feels so old to me. When I take a picture of this object that's on my desk. 6 months later, it will look very old to me, even though for the viewer. Audience, they're brand new. But to me, it's just I like to keep it fresh, and I think that speaks a lot about the type of content that I put out. It's more of a personal satisfaction for me. You know what I mean? It's not just, oh, this is going to look cool and people are going to like it and blah 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 blah. It's more about, this looks cool. And this looks really good. It feels really good for me. And so I like to deliver content in that way. I wish I could be as structured as you, to be honest with you. Because it saves me a lot of time.
I agree with what you're saying though, because I do I think with your podcast today, I'm at like a point now where I don't want to get any more, because I feel like I'm going to be too far out. I do like things to feel more fresh. If I was definitely talking about things that are happening in the world today, I feel like you wouldn't be able to plan that out.
Oh yeah,
because it needs to be current, it needs to be fresh. Like if we were talking about what's going in the political climate, or we're going on with these different things, that would have to be done and produced and put out that day.
Right.
But
I agree.
Yeah, but so for this though, I feel like it's right before that cutoff point that I can be like, okay, I can hold on for a little bit. But
I'm just saying, I wish I could be like you.
I wish I could be like you.
The grass is always greener. Isn't that funny?
But, well, I mean, I just, your photo editing style, man, when you go through your feed, you have this brown and clean white look that you know what I'm talking about? I've seen your other Instagram where you show editing. You actually are editing the photos. Yeah. Where did that style come from? Have you always had that photography style?
No, and this is a very funny question to ask me, because just right now, like maybe an hour ago, I was filling out a form that's going to appear on a blog post somewhere, and they basically ask similar questions, and one of the questions was, where do you find inspiration for your photos, like your style and everything? And for the first time, I was able to nail it down. I think.
Okay.
I was able to nail it down, and I said it's the sunset. Ooh. And the reason why I say that is because I'm I grew up in the Philippines. I was born and raised in Quezon City in the Philippines
Okay.
for 22 years. And the Philippines is the only place that I've been to that has such dramatic sunsets, like beautiful sunsets.
Ooh.
And I even remember the entire house, like where I grew up in, was bathed in orange. And no matter how messy the house was, once that orange glow filled the entire room, it just felt very different. And I was on Reddit a few days ago, and someone posted a picture of a sunset in the Philippines. And I said, I'll be honest, the sunsets in the Philippines is one of the most, like, probably the thing that I miss the most about, living back at home. It's just different. Like, obviously my family, I miss my family, but everything else is just, it almost feels like it pales in comparison to that feeling when I see it. So when I started taking photos, I guess subconsciously, I tried to mimic that feel. That's why I like working next to a window. That's why I like using natural light.
Mm-hmm.
I use natural light to light up my photos most 90% of the time. And I go for that warm, cozy glow, like that look. And it's one of those things that I just refined over the years. And it's just kept editing it because I was going for the feel. You know what I mean? So not necessarily the aesthetic that people are always after. Because when you think about, at least for me, when I think about aesthetic when editing photos, people like everything just clean and white and almost like sterile. Especially for technology, for product shots, they love that. They love buying like white boxes and putting white backgrounds and all that stuff. And I get it. Like, it's cool. I see the Apple appeal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's definitely not my style. I'm more of like the warm orange and brown and dark. Yeah. So it's like dark, but it's not depressing dark. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I didn't think about it that way with the sunset. That's a really good look. I think it's very original. I think it's a really original look.
Like I said, I just discovered that today.
The Philippines. Well, when did you move here from the Philippines?
I'd say, I think it was like 2003 or 2004.
Oh, wow.
So I'd say around that time, because I graduated college 2002.
Okay.
And I think 2003 was when we moved. My parents were always like, I have family here. So when I was growing up, we always traveled to the US almost every summer. And I think my friends were asking, a lot of them have asked me before, like, if you just moved here, you're not even 20 years in this country, it seems like you pick up the language like pretty well. And it's a very common question that I get. And I guess I'm just I just would like to say that it's the reason why is because I've always traveled here. And also my parents basically taught us English as our first language because they felt like if we were growing up in the Philippines, eventually we'll pick up the local language, right? Because we're interacting with people. So the best way for us to learn English was to teach us English as our first language, and that's why it became very, it's like second nature for me, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know why I threw that in because I just feel like your question was leading into that. No, because I've gotten that question a lot.
Oh well, actually, so I've been to the Philippines because of the Navy.
Yeah,
I've been to Manila. And I've been to Puerto Princess.
Oh, it's beautiful there.
Beautiful there. And then I've seen is it the underground river? Right? Isn't it like one of the wonders of the world? Is it the?
I think you've been to more places than me.
But anyways, Tagalog. Is that the language?
Tagalog, yes.
Tagalog. One of the YouTubers I watched, I can't think of his first name. Last name is Dasovich. He was a YouTuber from the Philippines. He lived in the States, but he went out to the Philippines. But I've heard him and his family uses a lot of English words.
Yes.
They sprinkle them in there, and it's almost like you can listen to the language and still kind of understand it, which is very interesting.
It's a very interesting language, Tagalog. There's a thing where we call it Taglish.
Okay,
and it's basically Tagalog and English, yeah. And it's so common. It's almost like it almost feels like the actual language in the Philippines.
Okay.
Then that's why a lot of people are very English literate there.
Mm-hmm.
We have this thing called they're basically called borrowed words. So there's a lot of Tagalog words that we couldn't really, or English words that we couldn't really translate into Tagalog.
Got it.
And so instead of doing that, we've almost just borrowed the word and changed the spelling.
Okay.
You know, I'll give you an example. There is a Tagalog word for an airplane, but it's very, very long. And it's not necessarily a word. It's almost like a description of what it is. So it's almost like saying it is a vehicle that's flying in the air. But translate that into Tagalog, and that's the word for airplane. So instead of using the Tagalog term for airplane, we just call it aeroplano.
Okay.
So it's a borrowed word. So it's not really a word. And then so as you know, when I was growing up, I noticed that like the whole nation was basically like that. They were learning these words that didn't have a direct translation, so they would just use the English word basically. And it's become so common that it's second nature for the country to use Tagalog and then sprinkle a little bit of English in there.
It's really cool. I just think it was a cool language because like at least the Tagoglish, what was the
Taglish?
Taglish, yeah, that's the version that I've heard.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
yeah. One of the side things going back to that you talked about earlier was people that talk but then don't do. I think that was a good thing that you were saying a while back there. Oh
yeah.
Would you give? Yeah, I've come across that a few times. I hate to like. I don't want to like throw anyone under the bus, but like I've had people that I've been creative in the past with that I feel like it's a lot of talk and then there's just no do. And I've always been the one that said, you got to say yes to everything. That's like my motto. I feel like I say it in every podcast. Like for me, starting out as a freelancer, I got to say yes. I got to say yes. What do you feel about that? What's your opinion?
Well, I feel like by saying that, you're not necessarily throwing anyone under the bus, because I feel that most people are like that. And it has a lot to do with how, you know, our comfort levels. You know, having a job that you can just show up to, and I'm not trying to diminish whatever job anyone has, but literally you show up, you get paid.
Right.
Regardless of what your performance, almost regardless of what your performance is.
Right.
The question would be, how much more are you going to get paid next year? Or how long are you going to keep that job if you're not doing a good, you know, well enough job?
Yeah.
But if you're a freelancer, just like you and me, you and I both know that we have to show up and actually do the work.
Right.
Right. And that's basically taught me. And I was never like this my entire life. I've learned a lot of things from starting from the ground up. I got laid off 3 times in my entire career. And the last time was just right before the pandemic. No, actually like 2 years ago when I started my Instagram account. And I kind of knew that was going to happen. And so that happened. And I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of trying to be the good worker and just showing up. And that's the thing. Like I caught myself. I said, you know, I was just showing up, and that's all I was doing. And I knew. Actually, as a matter of fact, I put out this video on YouTube just recently, and it's called Just Start. And I kind of share that story. And what it is basically is that I found myself sitting in front of the computer screen, looking at all these creators, these YouTubers, and whoever else that I admire. And I've always said, I want to do that. You know, I want to do that. Yep. I can do that. As a matter of fact, I think I can do better than that. That's all I kept saying to myself. But then years went by. I never did anything. Never did anything. But it has to do with because of how comfortable I was. And so I was comfortable with my position. I was getting paid every month, you know, regardless of what. So there were no consequences. But since I got laid off and, you know, I started freelancing, I realized that instead of saying that you want to do something, you just go do it.
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate that with people like Chelsea, for example, because when she says she wants to do something, she'll do something. Yeah. And she definitely proved that. And so now I made a new friend, and I feel like it's a trait that not everyone has, but everyone can learn. True. So that's how I feel. I prefer to work with people like that because, quite frankly, you can have a million people that will share with you the things that they want to do, but that won't mean anything if they don't if they actually don't do anything.
Sure. There was I don't know where I heard it, watched it, or something, but it was like a study. It's like the endorphins. when you say you're gonna do something, like I'm gonna start an Instagram account and I'm just gonna make it like this, and you start talking with someone about it, and you never actually do it, but you still achieve some of those endorphins by talking about it. So
Right.
I'm always like the one that like I've learned now where it's like, all right, I'm just not gonna talk about it. I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it, and then I'll talk about it later that I did it, instead of saying that I'm going to do something. Because if you just start talking about it, you get wrapped up in that whole, you get the high almost of doing it without actually doing it.
It's like people who, and I've, fallen into this category many, many times, but it's like people who get a gym membership, and you start to feel good because you have a gym membership.
Right.
But you never use it.
You took one photo with the thing on your keychain. Like one photo of a shoe. I'm at the gym today.
I'm at the gym, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I get that. Like what you just said. Like it's that dopamine hit, right? And it's like, oh yeah, I did something, but you're convincing yourself that you did something. You didn't really do anything. And at the end of the day, no one else is gonna ask you what you did. Right. It's just you. You're alone with your thoughts, and you're like, okay, how did my day go?
Right.
I didn't do anything. So I got sick of that feeling.
Right.
Like you said, I wanted to start feeling proud of this, exactly what you said, but I think this is what you were alluding to basically, is that sense of pride, right? That sense of accomplishment that only you can give yourself. And you only give that to yourself if you actually do the work and talk about it later. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, just do the work.
So I think we've touched on it a couple times, but why don't you, one thing I like to do here in the podcast is kind of have creators give some advice to other people out there that want to start, or, have been sitting there like you've been saying, going, oh, I'm going to do it, but that haven't done it. What would you give some advice to some people out there about that?
Absolutely. And my advice is something that we always repeat in the podcast. We repeat it in the podcast so much that I'm getting sick of it. And I even made a video about it. And it's to just start. Actually, this morning we had a guest, and this guest, I think your listeners will appreciate this. This guest had no experience with whatever it is that he was doing. No experience in content creation, in how to use a camera, or building whatever it is that he was building. But instead of, and he lacked the resources. Like he couldn't find any resources online, on YouTube, on Google, or anything like that. And you know what he did? He just started. Because he felt that the only way for him to learn that is to actually do the work. Yep. And so he did, and he is growing like crazy. And it's just something that I feel is latent in a lot of people. So if you are listening to this, if you're watching this, and you feel that you're stuck somewhere, start. It doesn't have to be a lot of work. It just has to be one step. One step forward, 1 inch is better than not moving at all. And once you start the wheel, eventually you'll get momentum. And then you'll start to think like, how come I never started back then?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was watching, when I started watching Casey Neistat on YouTube back in like 2016. And I actually have a couple of, on my other YouTube channel, like my personal one, I have a couple of vlogs because I made these Casey Neistat style vlogs. And I just, I one day I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I think that's some great advice. You just have to do it.
You just have to do it. It's really hard to give advice. Even though I can give you an encyclopedia of advice, but if you don't start, it's not going to do anything. It's just paperweight.
What are some of the influencers out there that have influenced you to start?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of people that I really admire. I admired Peter McKinnon for the longest time.
Yep.
Yeah. I think everyone loves him, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that the thing that I got from his content is that he really seemed to enjoy what he was doing. And that sense of like creative expression was so attractive to me that I'm like, I feel the same way when he makes those videos. Like I want to make videos that are like that can show my, like the things that I feel. And I also I used to watch a lot of car content, and this was like during the Top Gear years. And there's an auto journalist by the name of Chris Harris. I don't know if you've come across him before.
I haven't come across him, but I have to look into him.
Yeah, so he used to be I think he was just like a contributor to one of those like websites where he talks about cars and stuff. And then he started his own YouTube channel. And he just did his content. He made his content. And guess what? Now he's the host of Top Gear.
Wow.
And this was just like in the span of like less than 10 years. Like
Right.
when like at what point in time can you find something like that? Like some guy who just wanted to talk about something that he liked and then suddenly picked up by an international show. You know what I mean? And it's just great. And it just shows you like he's not particularly good. I mean, he is good.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's the best out of there. But the point is he started something.
Right.
Right? And I think those are the people that really inspire me. I'm not much for hype. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of content creators out there that have a lot of hype behind them. And I appreciate that. I can see it, but that's not really what those are not the qualities that draw me in.
Right.
To really like them in that sense. But it's a hard question to ask.
Yeah,
That's a long way of answering that question.
Well, back to Peter McKinnon. I mean, I love his stuff because you think about where he was 4 years ago, 2016. And I remember starting to watch him then. And that's what I'm so excited about my office. Like, it's like, I remember seeing him in his office and then he tells that story. Like I just watched this video the other day where they just hit, I don't know which one it was, 3 million, or 1 million.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's
Anyways,
crazy.
he's gone from that office to he's gone to 2 different locations, right? I saw him go from his bedroom to the office that Maddie Hapoya has now. And then he's moved on to having that huge warehouse. And that's my dream. I would love to have
I know, me too. Me too. This office is so small. If you know, it's really small. And I was telling my wife, I said, I think I need a new office. And she's like, where are we going to get the space? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm working towards that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day you and me will team up and we'll get a place like halfway between Long Beach and San Diego. And then we'll have
I'm gonna be so cool with that. It's just nice to think that there are other creators that I can meet. You know what I mean? Finally in person and not through. This is nice though. But
yeah. Well, actually, you're one of the
prefer to
closest
see
people here that I think I've had on the podcast. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to link up with you eventually and maybe
for sure
do something. With
And thank you for having me again, by the way.
Yeah, and thank you. And thank you for thank you for giving advice. Thank you for being on the podcast today. We're gonna be wrapping it up here. I'm just gonna let everyone know that down below is his information and his content, so you can follow him and see what he's doing. Links to his podcast, links to his social media. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Derek. Really appreciate it.
All right, this has been another Make Media podcast, and we are out.